Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of The Holler. I'm your host, Rachel Johnson, and today I had the chance to sit down with the director of Monongalia County Parks and Recreation, JR Petsko. He told me about all the fun things happening at the parks and his strategy for surviving a zombie apocalypse. Stay tuned because my conversation with JR starts right now. We're back on The Holler. I guess to our listeners, though, we're not back. This is the first time they'll be hearing you on the podcast. So for those of you who don't know, JR was actually an extra special guest because he was my test dummy. So maybe, I don't even know, a couple months ago, we sat down, recorded an episode on my phone to help kind of work out the tone of what this podcast would be. So I could learn how to record a podcast and how to write a script. So you are kind of like Holler royalty, maybe.
Oh, there we go, royalty. I don't know if I hear that too often. But,
well, I'll let you introduce yourself then.
Well, to add to that, though, that was great. Going into it, I knew we were not using that material. So there was zero pressure on talking to you. It was just like a nice conversation. So today we'll try to get rid of some of those butterflies that we know that this is going to be used material. So my name is JR Petsko. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation for Monongalia County. I always like to clear that up with to folks first off. When I tell people that I'm the Director of Parks of Monongalia County Parks, they always say, well, you know, the last time I was at Kreps. I'm like, no. Monongalia County Parks are Mason-Dixon Historical Park, Camp Muffley Park, and Chestnut Ridge Park. Those are the three county parks that we operate.
Jumping right into it, some of the notable parks and facilities that you all manage. If you had to describe Mon Parks in 3 words, what would they be?
Clean and family friendly. That is our motto. That's what our 3 parks try to accomplish every day that when they go to work, is make it sure it's a comfortable place for a family to come to. I don't think there's anything worse in the world than going to a park and you see a lot of litter. Or, one thing, I know this is not great radio material, but we try to make sure our bathrooms are clean. If you go to a park and you go in there and the bathroom is surprisingly clean, I bet you every time you will want to go back to that park. If you go in there and it's a horror show, I bet you're least likely to go back.
It is so funny you mentioned that because I was actually at Hovatters yesterday getting some content for them and stopped to use the bathroom after walking through the zoo and actually commented, that's a really clean bathroom.
It makes a difference, doesn't it?
It was cool in the bathroom. They have AC in there, and it smelled nice. And I walked out, I'm like, this is kind of weird to say, but that was a really nice bathroom. And the girl I was with was like, I was thinking the same thing.
See, it's very important to people. On a day-to-day basis, you don't really think about it, but it makes a big difference on whether you're going to go back to establishment or recommend it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's nice to hear that you all take pride on having clean and family-friendly parks. So obviously all the parks have that in common, that they're clean, they're family-friendly. What are some of the differences between these parks? So
I think we touched upon this last time that we talked, that it's really amazing that all 3 of the parks are completely different. We'll start with Camp Muffley because that's spending a lot of my time right now because it is 4-H camp time of year. And most people in Morgantown, I'm from here, have called Camp Muffley 4-H camp their entire life, even though that park sees camp 3 weeks out of the entire year. People think that is the 4-H camp. While it is for 3 weeks, the majority of the year it is just a public park with a public pool that's open 7 days a week from noon until 5. There's playgrounds. We do pavilion rentals there as well, and it is a huge wedding venue. We hear it almost weekly from people who come to see our facility. A lot of wedding venues are like $10,000 nowadays, and you can rent our facility for a wedding, the whole building, the whole kit and caboodle outside. It's around $2,500. So,
wow.
Yeah, exactly. We hear that exact thing all the time. So then we'll leave there. We'll head up the mountain. We go to Chestnut Ridge. Well, that is our campground facility. We have 40 RV sites. We have 50 tent camping sites. We have tent sites, and we have cabins for rental. One of the bigger things up there is we have our new tubing hill. This past winter, we finally had a winter with some cold weather. We have the ability to make snow up there whenever it's cold enough. And then we have a lift system that will take your tube to the top of the hill, and you can do that in the wintertime for 2 hours for $10. You just can't get a value like that anywhere else. They have that at Wisp. I think it's $40 to $50 to do that for 2 hours up there. So we try to pass along the savings to the folks and make it cheap. The last thing we have going on at Chestnut Ridge, we just received our new stage for that facility. Concerts have been going on at Chestnut Ridge for about 30 years now. And every year we had this old rickety wooden stage that we would take apart and put together. And it was always drama about putting it together because no one had time to do it. And this year we finally have a new Liberty stage that unfolds and we can fold up at night and has upgraded sound and lighting. So it just makes the concert experience so much better for pit folks. Then, of course, can't I have to save the best for last. Mason-Dixon Historical Park. Before I was the director of county parks, I was the superintendent at Mason-Dixon for about 6 years. So that will always and forever be my baby of the 3 parks. The superintendent over there, I feel sorry for Angela because she actually gets held to a little bit higher standard than everyone else. Over there, most people know we have our ferry door trail. We have a space trail over there. We offer kayaking over there where you can put on your flat water kayak and go down the creek to Rising Creek Bakery in Mount Morris. That's like a 2.5 hour float. People love to do that. And we also have about 6 miles of hiking trails over there. So the one very interesting thing about that park that I like to share, that it's one of the few parks, it's 300 acres. 150 of the acres are in West Virginia and 150 acres are in Pennsylvania. So very few county parks that you're going to find where they're in another state that we don't even operate. So it's a wonderful place, and I always tell people you got to get out there.
Yeah, so Mason-Dixon's kind of like your baby.
It is for sure. Yeah, I'm always told to let it go. I do other things nowadays, but it just will always be that way.
Yeah, you never forget your first love.
That's for sure.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned like the affordability of the parks, because I would agree that tubing was really affordable. If you all follow Visit Mountaineer Country on any of our social medias, you might have seen me and a couple of our interns partaking in the tubing. I don't know if you can tell from the videos, but we had a really good time. We got going pretty fast. And I remember telling my friends about it, like, oh yeah, we got to go tubing for 2 hours. It was $10. They were like, wait, really? I'm like, yes. But I'm also glad that you mentioned weddings, because I am of the age where I feel like I have a wedding every weekend between April and October. And so definitely in the thick of it with a lot of my friends planning weddings, and you're right, they start at like $10,000 for venues. It's become amazing anymore.
Wedding venues are a big business, and we love, we found a niche for us over there where, a lot of people don't have $10,000 to throw around, and if you offer them a facility for the whole weekend for $2,500 for what we have to offer over there, people jump on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of money, how do you feel like the Mon County parks contribute to local tourism and the regional economy?
Well, that's a great example. We have coming up here the weekend after next, we have a bicycle event in Mason-Dixon that starts and ends there. It's called the Hilly Billy Roubaix. It's a 72-mile bicycle race on the worst roads they can find around Mon County. That will bring around 300 to 400 people from all over the East Coast to come to our little Mason-Dixon Park. So you got to think, those folks who come here, they're staying in hotels. They're buying gas, they're buying lunch. So, you don't think of it much, but your little community park actually can bring a lot of funds into the area. Same thing with Chestnut Ridge Park. We've kind of noticed we've become this gateway from the Baltimore, D.C. crowd that want to go down to the new national park down on the New River, and so they don't want to make that drive in one day, so they'll usually stop at Chestnut Ridge. So we're getting hotel motel tax for the stays in the cabins. We're getting all this RV business now because we haven't seen before. So all that just adds to the local economy. It's really interesting to see it from the inside.
Yeah, and speaking of the different visitors that you have in the parks, have you seen any trends in the way locals and visitors are using the parks?
I think nowadays we're seeing a lot more of those quick trips to the park. It used to be people would come out and spend half the day, going for a hike, flying kites, this or that. But nowadays, everybody's so busy. We see a lot more 30-minute visits. It's very interesting. You bring the kids over to the playgrounds for 30 minutes, let them play, then go about your day. It's sad to see that people don't have as much time to spend in the park, but we're still happy that they definitely utilize it. The numbers are up. It's just the visits are shorter.
That is interesting.
It's interesting. I really think it has to do with just, as well as I do, we every day we pack as much as we have to in our day, and it just doesn't leave a lot of time for ourselves sometimes. So those trips to the park are shorter and shorter.
So one of the things that I guess keeps people in the parks longer are these events that you all are holding. What kinds of events happen in the parks throughout the year, and how do you think they help draw people in?
Well, how do we help draw them in? And for one is price. We have a concert series throughout the summer that alternates between Chestnut Ridge Park and Mason-Dixon, where we try to bring in some of the better local bands that we can afford to, and the price is $5 to come see this. If you have a child are free. We have food trucks, and we actually have a stand-up comedian who does the intro and intermission. So for $5, we try to give you as much as we possibly can for value. And the other thing is we just offer a lot of free things. You can go enjoy the Ferry Door Trail at Mason-Dixon for free. You can go for a hike for free. There's playgrounds, everything, playground usage is free. So, we try to offer fun, but not try to add a big price tag to it for folks.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Ferry Door Trail, because you've brought that up a couple of times now. Can you explain what that is?
So, as a product of just before COVID, we were approached by Eddie Spaghetti, the local artist, and his family, that they wanted to build a ferry door house on one of the trails that we had just constructed in the park. And we said, sure, go ahead, it'd be fine. Eddie's a reputable guy. We weren't too worried about it, but we didn't think it was going to be something that lasted at all. Then COVID hit as they had these ferry door houses installed. Nobody could do anything but go to parks and be outside. And so families started bringing their children to the park for a walk, and they started seeing these little ferry houses that are built into the bases of trees or built into down logs, and kids are allowed to play with them and interact with them, and it blew up. The story about it was put in local paper by Ben Connolly, one of the Dominion Post writers. It got picked up by the AP News, and so it went out on the wire. It was on front page in Charleston, and it just grew from there. Other local artists wanted to get involved and build these houses. And just because of COVID and you couldn't do anything else, it exploded at Mason-Dixon Park and put that park on the map. Besides of how that park has grown over the years, I really put a lot on that Ferry Door Trail really putting that park on the map.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Ferry Door Trail. I think it's super cute and kind of unexpected and something a little different, and maybe, I don't know if I'd call it a hidden gem anymore since it has gotten a lot of media attention, but are there any hidden gems in the park that you think more people should know about?
Well, I think the trail system at Mason-Dixon, for one, we'll start there, is the hidden gem of trail systems if you're a hiker or a mountain biker. I grew up riding a mountain bike. I would go to Cooper's. There's people everywhere, and that's fine. I love seeing people, but you can go to Mason-Dixon and hike all day, and I bet you might see one person out on those trails. That's not for everybody, but some of us like the solitude of being out in the woods alone, and so that is one of my favorite things. People might also not know that we built a brand new pool facility at Camp Muffley just 3 years ago. We spent $1 million renovating the pool we had and building a new pool house. Used to be, before that pool was renovated, you might have 10 people over there on a non-camp day because the facilities were older and they needed upgraded. And when I say older, we're talking late 60s, so older. And now we have $1 million facility that is just wonderful. And you'll go over there on, today's going to be 89 degrees, it says. There'll probably be 70 people in that pool today. So that's definitely a hidden gem. Even though we get 70 people, not everybody knows that facility has been upgraded. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, the pool does sound really nice. Mm-hmm. My car thermometer said it was 90 degrees outside.
See.
So. Not that this isn't fun, but I think I'd rather be talking to you in a pool right now.
I understand. We can do that next time. Next year.
Time, yes.
Pool interview.
Yes, maybe, this will become a regular thing. We'll get an interview out on the tubing hill, and we'll do one in the pool.
That's for sure. That sounds like a great idea.
Yes, for our seasonal conversations. So, like I said, Ferrydoor Trail, really cool. We know that the parks are beautiful because, we have lots of great nature here in Mon County. What do you think is the most popular or most Instagrammable spot in the parks?
Oh, that's easy. I mean, well, not intentionally, but we got to go back to Mason-Dixon on this one. But the most Instagrammable, Facebook-worthy is definitely the Almost Heaven Swing at Mason-Dixon Park. As you know, but everybody out there might not, the West Virginia Department of Tourism has these Almost Heaven Swings scattered all over the state of West Virginia. And people travel to see these swings. And they actually have a stand for them so you can take your Instagram photos if it's just you by yourself or you want a couple's photo. But that swing is by far the place to go. We have people that travel to that park just to take a picture with that swing, and then they go.
Yes, I know people definitely try to collect pictures at all the Almost Heaven Swings, and so, Mason-Dixon's really lucky to have one, and it is in a really cool spot. I mean, all the swings are placed in, interesting spots. Obviously, that's the point of them, is you want the picture, but I like where Mason-Dixon's is, because it kind of welcomes people from Pennsylvania.
Well, two things on that. One, thank you very much to Mountaineer Country for partnering with us to get that swing. Without you all, we would definitely not have that. And for those who don't know, our Almost Heaven Swing is located about 5 feet away from the Mason-Dixon line. So in that same area at the Mason-Dixon line, we also have a bench that says West Virginia that's in West Virginia. Then a foot away, there's a bench that says Pennsylvania. So you can pick which state you want to sit in for your photos. Then you can see the Almost Heaven Swing. And then 50 yards away, there's the trailhead for the Waterfall Trail to Tucker Falls, which is on the West Virginia Waterfall Trail. Now, I will say, that's a temperamental waterfall. I wouldn't go up to see it unless it rained the last couple of days. Last summer, with the drought we had, I don't know if there was much water going over that waterfall. It's kind of temperamental, but it's there.
Yeah. Well, we've had more than enough rain this last month.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, it's definitely running today.
Nice. So the swing was obviously a big project, a big undertaking. Are there any other recent projects or upcoming projects that you're really excited about?
Well, the recent project, we did talk about the new stage at Chestnut Ridge just a little bit ago, but this is going to be show number 2 this Saturday. So it is very recent, and it's nice to bring it up again because, barely anyone knows that we have that stage and how it upgrades our facility. Other things that are new and coming. We have a project that I guess I really haven't put out there much that I can share. I feel like we're getting close enough now that it looks like it's going to happen. We have the baseball field at Mason-Dixon Park as well. It is your typical baseball field made out of a field, a hay field. So we're going to renovate that at the end of the summer, and we're going to actually make a legitimate baseball field out there for folks to use. If you're running through the outfield right now, you're up, down. It's nowhere near a flat surface.
There's some hazards.
Yes, for sure. And so we're going to get a crew in there. We've outsourced that project to level that field so that, it's safer for the kids, and it just makes them feel like they're actually a part of something, playing on a real baseball field instead of what is just literally a field that we cut grass in right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great to hear about all the ways you are developing the park system and improving them. When you are thinking through these new developments or maintaining these recreational spaces, how does your team think about sustainability?
Well, it's kind of funny you asked that. So a lot of times what we're doing is we're not building new facilities. We are replacing facilities that were built in the 50s and 60s. So we think about sustainability as in they're going to have to last another 60 years while we build new, because we probably won't have the opportunity to do that again.
So with, all these recent projects, developments, things like that, updating parts of the park, let's say you had an unlimited budget.
Mm-hmm.
We'll pretend.
Yeah.
What is one dream project that you would bring to life in the parks?
So my dream, and it was helped a little bit. Okay, so as most people know here, last month we had that microburst storm cell that came through with the really, really heavy winds. And unfortunately, that hit Chestnut Ridge Park. And it took down, I think we've cut up at least 60 trees at this point. Unfortunately, some of those trees landed straight on top of cabins. Oh. 2 of the cabins were taken out of commission. 1 was totally destroyed. So my biggest thing that I want to do is to renovate those cabins at Chestnut Ridge Park. It's a beautiful park up there. The facilities are just old. And we have the money coming through in the levy to help update that. It's just going to take a lot of time. If I had an unlimited budget, we would do all that tomorrow by things like connecting the road and the RV park. We have two separate RV parks at Chestnut Ridge. It's one RV park really, but there's no road connecting them. So if you're bringing a big RV in, sometimes you have to back your RV up a road to get in your spot. It's just things like that we're just not up to date on what other places could offer. And with the beauty of Chestnut Ridge Park, if we could just go in there and do anything we wanted, that could be a premier area for RV and tent camping for sure. We'll get there. It's just going to take us a little bit. I just can't do it all at one time because we don't have the budget to do it.
Yeah, and maybe some trees falling on cabins expedites the process.
It did a little. So there was a little benefit of that. Clare Lodge, our big lodge up there, that was built in the 1920s, it took a pretty good hit and it's closed for quite a while. It'll be until we reopen. But that is one where you're kind of a little upset that, you don't want to take history out. Some of the other cabins that were just cabins, it's not as hurtful.
Right. The storms took my gutter down, and it's not really a historic landmark, but it was inconvenient.
Inconvenient is correct. I understand.
Yes. So, thinking of, the park system and all the ways that all the things you do to promote the parks and get people in them. If Mon County Parks had a mascot, what would it be?
Well, we do have a mascot. So
tell me about the mascot.
Okay, so if you didn't know about the mascot, our mascot is Teeter Totter the otter. He became our mascot probably about 4 or 5 years ago. We had a member of the community who purchased the actual costume for us. Teeter Totter will show up at the Easter egg hunt at Mason-Dixon and sometimes at concerts at Chestnut Ridge Park. But the cream of the crop is I got to tell you how Teeter Totter the otter became our mascot.
Yeah, an otter feels a little random.
Yeah,
so
yes.
I feel like there's a story there.
There's most definitely a story, and I love telling it all the time. Just wow, it might have not have been fun for the folks in the story. It just makes you chuckle a little bit. There's a group of individuals who do a float on Dunker Creek from the park down to Rising Creek Bakery every Mother's Day weekend. This is an annual event that's been going on for at least 15 years. Individuals who are in the park system, in the National Forest Service, so woodsy people. And so about 4 years ago, they were going down Dunker Creek in about 15 canoes. And one individual who does work for the Forest Service saw a river otter swimming around her canoe. And she pulled out her phone and she decided to start filming this beautiful river otter swimming around her boat. Seen a video. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, sure.
But then it turned ugly real quick. The otter scurried up in their canoe and bit her husband on the butt.
Oh my God.
Yes. Well, it's funny now.
In the moment.
Yes, in the moment, I'm sure it was very terrifying.
Did everybody have to get rabies shots?
Well, we're not done with the story yet.
Okay, there's more.
There's more. So, as you can imagine, everybody's a little unnerved of what just happened. So they went a quarter mile down the river, and they all grouped up together, all 15 canoes. So while they were all grouped up, she came back and got up into another canoe and bit another person.
This is a hostile otter.
Certainly. And just so people know, we've not seen an otter in the park since that day. But yes, they had to go to the hospital. They had to get a series of rabies shots over a couple months. And one of the individuals who was bit was a friend of mine, and he is traumatized by our mascots. So we stocked trout in that creek about the week before for a kids fishing rodeo. And river otters have a good range of 2 to 3 miles, and we really think that because we stocked trout in there, the mother otter decided to come and fish in that territory. So we've not since done that, so we've not seen her. And wow, I love river otters, and I think they're beautiful. I hope that she doesn't come back.
Yes, an unfortunate run-in that led to a mascot for the parks.
For sure.
I love that. So while we're talking about, maybe some life or death situations in the parks, like hostile river otters, in the event of a zombie apocalypse, if you had to survive in one of the parks, which one would you pick and why?
Oh, that's such a good... You know what? I have to go back to Mason-Dixon Park again. I mean, for something that we talked about a little bit ago. We were talking about if you're going hiking out on the trails, how you would see no one. I would have to, if the zombies were coming, I want to go where people aren't. So the food supply for the zombies would be low. So I would be up on the trails in Mason-Dixon. Then I would probably sneak down over the hill to the creek where the otter was and do some fishing and get my food there and get my water supply. So I would probably have to go there.
Good to know. That in the event of an apocalypse.
You're not going to share anybody with anybody, right? Okay, because that's my spot.
We'll cut that part out.
Okay, please.
Hopefully the zombies don't get the otter.
Zombify. Well, the otters are bad enough when they're not zombified, so they're biting people already. So what do we do when there's zombie otters?
Zombie otters.
I think we just came up with a movie, though.
That sounds terrifying, and somebody should get on that right now. Well, if any of our listeners want to plan their own perfect day in the Mon County Parks, where can they go to find more information or get involved?
Super easy. All they have to remember is moncountyparks.com. If you go to moncountyparks.com, that'll give you access to all 3 parks. You can literally book your RV sites, your campsites, building rentals, tent sites. You can book pool parties at the Camp Muffley Pool. You can do just about everything on there. And if what you can't do, there's contact information for all of us. And you can get a hold of me and my staff.
Nice. Well, those are all the questions I have. Is there anything you want to add?
Sure. Follow our social media. We have 4 accounts. We have Monongalia County Parks and Rec. That's the main account where you're going to find most of your information. But each park has their own individual Facebook and Instagram account. But keep up with that Monongalia County Parks and Rec account. We try to post something every day. We tell people what's coming up this weekend. If there's any important information that needs to get out, like if trail was closed for trees down or anything like that, we try to keep all the information pretty up to date for the public.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show again. Thanks for being I won't call you a dummy, our test subject for the first go around.
No problem. I look forward to doing this next year in the pool.
Yes.
All right.
Let's do it. We don't have to wait next year. We can do this next week.
With no otters.
No otters.
No otters.
We'll keep the otters out of the pool.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you. And that's all for today's episode. If you have an idea for someone we should have on the show or a topic you'd like us to cover, leave a comment on this episode or email info@visitmountaineercountry.com with the subject line podcast. To learn more about Visit Mountaineer Country, head to visitmountaineercountry.com. And to keep up with all the fun things we're doing, make sure to check us out on social media. Thanks again for joining us in the Holler. Keep coming back to hear stories about cryptids, hidden gems for foodies, inspiring stories from small business owners, and so much more. That's all for now. We'll holler at you soon.